I think I found the perfect grey market sports watch. This watch is one of the best sports watches to get on the grey market in new or close to brand new condition. So this watch is the Glashütte Original SeaQ Panorama date on a canvas strap. Well, it's a synthetic strap. Canvas looking though. So in this video I want to go over my impressions of the watch and then compare it quickly to its competition and get into answering why I think this is the perfect grey market sports watch. So the watch features a case diameter of 43.2 millimeters. It's pretty large, but the lug to lug on this piece is under 48 millimeters, so 47.5 millimeters, and that makes it rather wearable. Now, the other detractor is the thickness at 15.65 millimeters. This boy thick. It's very much up there in terms of thickness in sports watches as well. And the lug width is at 21 millimeters, quite standard. I appreciate the brushed steel finish on this watch. It's done really well. The dome sapphire glass is an acquired taste, but gives this watch some character and a slight vintage nod. Every brand seems to be doing these vintage nods because the people buying these watches are generally an older demographic, and this is what appeals to them. And I kind of like it too. The clasp on this watch is a work of art. Patek, please take note. This is how you make a deploying clasp on a watch. It is so nice. Right down from the way it looks, the finishing, the dimensioning, the action of it, and how it feels on the wrist. The movement in this watch is the caliber 3613 Glashütte in-house movement with a striped finish, free sprung balance, a silicone hairspring, all kind of standard-ish components except for the finishing, which is absolutely immaculate. And it's one of the main things Glashütte Original is known for. The rotor itself is skeletonized in this with that Glashütte GO logo, and it's got a 21 karat gold oscillation weight. And the movement runs at 4 Hertz, kind of the industry standard, but it's got a 100-hour power reserve, which is a nice benefit. The main feature of this movement though is that panorama date, which we'll get into shortly. Now this watch can be found on a couple of different straps, a couple of different dial options, and even a couple of different metals. But if we're just looking at the steel, and that's what I would go for, it can also be had on the bracelet, but I think it wears best on a strap because the watch itself is thick. Now to quickly compare it with the Submariner. So this is not a head-to-head comparison. Everyone has done that. I think it's just important to mention the Submariner in the same conversation because this watch is priced higher than the Submariner. So it's also a diver with 300 meters of water resistance, and it's really going for the same sports diver watch market segment. And it's also got a black dial, it's a 3-hander ceramic bezel. But in terms of the size, I think you'd rather compare this to the 43mm Sea Dweller and not exactly the Submariner. This watch is something I'd rather have on the strap and not necessarily the bracelet. But the Submariner is a watch you hardly ever see not on this bracelet. That combination is perfected. So I don't know if you'd really compare these head to head because the Submariner is still more expensive if you consider grey market pricing and getting one at retail and all those other issues. I think this watch is cooler in terms of the movement. It looks way better. It has 100-hour power reserve and the finishing is immaculate, which you really don't see on a Submariner, and that's not what that watch is for. I think this is a lot more discreet as well. It makes for a much better everyday wearer. So now onto the panorama date, why it's so special. So what is a panorama date? Well, simply by looking at the watch you can tell that the date aperture is large and wide. It sits there in the bottom right quadrant of the dial. And if you look at the size of this, its positioning on the dial, and think about how a date wheel has 31 days and it's a circle, this kind of seems impossible to do. On closer inspection, you notice that there's 2 concentric date wheels, an inner one and an outer one, each displaying only one number of the date. There are 2 aspects of cool to this. The first, the fact that it has 2 date discs. And second, the fact that there's 0 gap in between them and they don't overlap and they turn independent of each other. So now I'm kind of beginning to understand why the case profile of this watch is so thick. So how does the watch wear? At 43.2 millimeters, very specific on their website, it wears smaller than the diameter states because of the lug to lug being 47.5 under 50 millimeters. For example, the Tudor Pelagos is a 52 millimeter lug to lug distance, and most people are kind of fine with that watch. As you see on my wrist, which is 7.3 inches, 18.5 centimeters, this wears rather well. I think a smaller wrist can also do with this watch. It is very much in the daily, everywhere category of watch. It's just, you got to note that it's kind of thick, and I would recommend the synthetic strap. It won't necessarily fit all that well under a tight sleeve. So it's not really a winter watch. I think it's very much a sports watch, so tropical weather or kind of a summer watch, but still every day. It feels and looks rugged, even though it's kind of an expensive, almost entry-level high horology masterpiece kind of thing. When you look at the back of it, the case back, you look at the front of it, it's a rugged sports watch, and it feels every bit so on the wrist. It's got a lot of heft to it. It gives you the reassurance of a really quality product on the wrist. So now answering the question, why is this a perfect grey market watch? Grey market sports watch. So firstly, this is an interesting watch in itself, and an interesting offering from Glashütte Original because of two reasons. It's a really good competitor to the Submariner and Seamaster, but they're pushing for a higher bracket. There's gateway watches into luxury, and this is that next level. So you go from regular luxury watches, so Omegas, Rolexes, to Patek, VC, AP, Lange territory. So it's on the ladder at a higher rung than Rolex and the other sports watches. The thought process behind the movement and finishing side comes from dress watches, as that's Glashütte Original's core competence. That's why you see an immaculately finished movement, much prettier than what you find in the Seamaster or the utilitarian looking movement in the Submariner. I kind of compare it to the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. If you quickly hop on Chrono 24, you notice there's a ton of these on the market, and that's where it gets good for watch enthusiasts and buyers. That's kind of why I think this is the perfect watch, particularly because there's a lot of them that are basically new or very close to brand new and at a massive discount compared to retail. And at that price, it is a killer watch. I think this is because Glashütte Original doesn't quite yet capture demand like the other brands, which are more mainstream. Omega, Rolex, as of recent IWC, maybe even JLC. Glashütte Original watches are kind of niche in that sea of mainstream options. Now, I filmed this watch at Ken's Watches a while back. They're a store in Hong Kong. It's a grey market dealer. I don't know what it was listed at because I got hands on it before they even listed it. And the watch has since been sold. No idea at what price. But I'm pretty sure quite under market because they're underneath Chrono 24 prices because Chrono has their own margin. So naturally, if you go directly to a dealer, it's going to be cheaper. But if you use Chrono as a benchmark, which you can just deduct a standard 10% or so. It really depends on the watch. Some watches are just inflated and the dealers don't actually have them, and then they want to source it. That's why it's extremely highly priced. But these kind of watches, dealers typically own them. It's not a really fast-moving product or an extremely high-end product that needs to be sourced. So as you can see on Chrono 24, there's multiple of them listed, many dealers, varying range of conditions. There's a bunch of pre-owned ones. That's actually what I would go for. A lot of people don't want a pre-owned watch, and this is one of the good watches to not get pre-owned because then you don't have to worry about any defects or issues or warranty that's out of date. You get all of it. Now, the lowest price you can find is used, of course, and as a daily wear sort of watch, that kind of makes sense because it's bound to get scratched. But for those who want to avoid the headache of having a watch out of warranty and something, especially some movement like this, which not so many people can service, you really would rather get the manufacturer to deal with all of that. And for that, if you have any concerns, you'd rather be in the warranty period, which you can at a significant discount. So the reasons why it's perfect. Firstly, it's a relatively new model. It's not more than 4 years old at the oldest. And you can get a ton of them brand new, well under retail. So you get the warranty, you can relax about servicing and any issue that might turn up. Second reason, it's that bridge level between high horology and luxury watches. So I think that's a really cool segment to have at the price of mid-tier luxury watches. And it's kind of one of the only watches, well, apart from the 50 Fathoms, that's in that sports watch territory, but also has a really high-end movement and finishing to it. The third reason is that movement and having a utilitarian sports watch on the front and something so unique and dress watch like on the back. There's not too many watches that can do that. What are some reasons not to get it? Well, the main elephant in the room, A lot of people hate the thickness. I understand that. The dome crystal doesn't help with that either. But you either care about it or it doesn't bother you at all. And the second reason would be, well, the Blancpain 50 fathoms. Depends on which one you like more, really. Let me know if you know of a better watch on the secondary market. Something you can get new at a significant discount that is very comparable to this. I think some JLC pieces might come to mind, but they've also gone up in price and they're not really sports watches. So if there's any better sports watch in this kind of segment on the grey market, put it down in the comments. Until then, see you in the next video.